Why Obama hasn't endorsed Harris. The former president has positioned himself as an impartial elder statesman above intra-party machinations and was neutral during the 2020 Democratic primaries. Many of the marquee names in Democratic politics began quickly lining up behind Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday, but one towering presence in the party held back: Barack Obama. The former president has not yet endorsed Ms. Harris. In fact, he did not mention her once in an affectionate, if tautly written, tribute to President Biden that was posted on Medium shortly after he decided to bow out on Sunday. Joe Biden has been one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me, wrote Mr. Obama, who chose Mr. Biden as his running mate in 2008 because he said at the time that he wanted an older, more experienced running mate with gray in his hair and limited future presidential ambitions. We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, Mr. Obama wrote in the Post. But I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. Republicans interpreted that as a snub. But people close to Mr. Obama, who has positioned himself as an impartial elder statesman above intra-party machinations, said not to read too much into it, and had no alternate candidate in mind when he made the decision not to immediately endorse Ms. Harris. Mr. Obama adopted an identical stance 4 years ago when Mr. Biden's aides pressured him to endorse early in the Democratic primaries before Senator Bernie Sanders dropped out. Mr. Obama's favorite phrase back then was, "I don't want to thumb the scale." Endorsing too early now would also be a political mistake, fueling criticism that Ms. Harris' nomination, should it come, was a coronation rather than the best possible consensus under rushed circumstances, they said. Instead, Mr. Obama sees his role as helping to quickly unite the party once we have a nominee, a person familiar with his thinking said. But there are other more personal considerations, exacerbating Mr. Obama's innate caution. Mr. Biden is a deeply prideful man, and he has never fully forgiven Mr. Obama for quietly backing former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the 2016 campaign. Mr. Biden still believes he could have beaten former President Donald J. Trump that year if given the chance. Nor was Mr. Biden pleased when Mr. Obama told him that he should consider sitting out 2022, people in his circle have said. Mr. Obama wanted Sunday to be about Mr. Biden, a celebration of his accomplishments, and does not feel pressured to act hastily, according to a former White House official who speaks with the former president regularly. Parkinson's expert visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. The White House said President Biden had met with a neurologist only 3 times in more than 3 years in office, and implied that the doctor's visits were related to treating other people. An expert on Parkinson's disease from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center visited the White House 8 times in 8 months from last summer through this spring, including at least once for a meeting with President Biden's physician, according to official visitor logs. The expert, Dr. Kevin Cannard, is a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders and recently published a paper on Parkinson's. The logs, released by the White House, document visits from July 2023 through March of this year. More recent visits, if there have been any, would not be released until later under the White House's voluntary disclosure policy. It was unclear whether Dr. Cannard was at the White House to consult specifically about the president or was there for unrelated meetings. Dr. Cannard's LinkedIn page describes him as supporting the White House medical unit for more than 12 years. His biography on Doximity, a website for health professionals, lists him as a neurology consultant to the White House medical unit and the physician to the president from 2012 to 2022, which would include the administrations of Presidents Barack Obama and Donald J. Trump. Records from the Obama administration, when Mr. Biden was vice president, show that Dr. Cannard made at least 10 visits in 2012 plus a family tour, 4 in 2013, 1 in 2014, 4 in 2015, and 8 in 2016. Mr. Trump rescinded Mr. Obama's voluntary White House visitors disclosure policy, so records are not available for his 4 years in office. Dr. Cannard did not respond to repeated requests for comment. In a statement released at 9:40 p.m. on Monday, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the White House physician, confirmed that Dr. Cannard had seen Mr. Biden 3 times during the 3.5 years of his presidency, but did not directly say whether any of his other visits were related to consulting on the president's health. Instead, Dr. O'Connor implied that most of Dr. Cannard's visits were related to treating other people who work at the White House. Prior to the pandemic, and following its end, he has held regular neurology clinics at the White House Medical Clinic in support of the thousands of active duty members assigned in support of White House operations, Dr. O'Connor wrote. Confirming what a White House spokesman said earlier in the day, Dr. O'Connor said that Mr. Biden had seen Dr. Cannard each year as part of his overall annual physical checkup and that the latest examination had found no sign of Parkinson's. President Biden has not seen a neurologist outside of his annual physical, Dr. O'Connor wrote. Dr. Cannard met on January 17 with Dr. O'Connor as well as Dr. John Atwood, a cardiologist at Walter Reed, and another person in the early evening in the White House Residence Clinic, the logs showed. That meeting came a month before Mr. Biden underwent his most recent annual physical checkup at Walter Reed on Feb. 28. In a 6-page letter released after that checkup, Dr. O'Connor said the president's medical team had conducted an extremely detailed neurologic exam that had yielded no findings which would be consistent with Parkinson's, stroke, or other central neurological disorders. Dr. O'Connor did not say whether the examination contained common tests for assessing cognitive decline or detecting signs of dementia that are often recommended for older adults. The White House has said in recent days that there has been no reason to conduct further examinations since February. Questions about Mr. Biden's health, and specifically about Parkinson's, have proliferated since his disastrous debate performance against Mr. Trump on June 27. In interviews with ABC News on Friday and MSNBC on Monday, Mr. Biden said he had the equivalent of a neurological exam every day because of the pressure of presidential duties. The visitor logs, which have also been reported by other news organizations, including the New York Post and The Guardian, indicated that Dr. Cannard's first recorded visit to the White House during the Biden administration was on November 15, 2022. The records indicate that he was visiting Joshua Simmons, whose title is not listed. Dr. Cannard's 8 more recent visits started on July 28, 2023, when he was listed as meeting with Megan Nasworthy, a White House liaison to Walter Reed. She was listed as the person visited for 7 of those meetings, which consistently occurred early, between 7 and 9 a.m. on Fridays, with the exception of the last meeting, which occurred on Thursday, March 28, the day before Good Friday. The logs note a 10th visit that appeared to be for a family tour of the White House. Andrew Bates, a White House spokesman, said that while the president always travels with regular doctors, he has not seen specialists in Delaware, where he has private residences. Around the time of the first meetings, Dr. Cannard published a research paper in the journal Parkinsonism and Related Disorders on the early stages of Parkinson's. An array of neurologists who have not personally examined Mr. Biden said they observed symptoms in his public appearances that were consistent with Parkinson's or a related disease, such as hypophonic speech, forward flexed posture, a shuffling gait, masked face, and irregular speech pattern. But they emphasized that a specific diagnosis could not be given without first-hand examination. White House officials said that Mr. Biden had shown no signs of Parkinson's and that Dr. O'Connor found no reason to re-evaluate Mr. Biden for the disease since his physical in February. Mr. Bates also said the president has never taken levodopa or other drugs for that condition. In his interview with ABC News on Friday, Mr. Biden declined to agree to an independent neurological and cognitive exam. "I get a cognitive test every day," he said, meaning that the exceptional challenges of the presidency effectively tested him on a daily basis. Calling into Morning Joe on MSNBC on Monday morning, Mr. Biden insisted again that his confusion and halting performance at the debate were an aberration due in part to an infection or other minor ailment, and were not a sign of a larger medical issue. "If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away," he said. "That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, testing everywhere I go. Going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out until 2 o'clock in the morning that very night. That very night. It drives me nuts, people talking about this. What exactly is the ailment Biden suffers from?"
One person tweeted,
"Dementia. Joe is not a doddering old man. He has full-blown dementia. They have him propped up on drugs to keep him somewhat lucid and to not fly off in fits of rage, as he is known to do and we have witnessed." They don't have him do any real media questioning because when challenged, dementia patients quickly lose their patience, lose composure, and get mad. Plus issues with memory. But the worst is yet to come for him. Which we won't see Alzheimer's if he lives that long. Alzheimer's is full score % lose all memory of everything. Total vegetable, very sad to see.